Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lewis.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Hello everybody and welcome back again to the Rangers Journal. We done a pod earlier on discussing the possibility of no Muscat, and now Chris Jack has tweeted out that there is no Muscat. He is out of the running for the vacant Rangers manager job, and to dissect this I'm joined by Chris, who looks as if he's got a pile of stuff to get off his chest. Chris, how are you?
Scotty, honestly, it's a shambles, an absolute shambles. The state of Rangers at the moment, and the fact that this is, like, you could say, possibly even a third, fourth Rangers manager's turned us down, whatever it is now, something seriously is going on. Ryan put it on the podcast earlier. There's a cancer within our club. Something serious is happening at Rangers at the moment, and for the fact that Kevin Muscat has now been another one who's the talks are broken down with, the two who are at the heart of this is Stilwell and Stewart. And look, that sign that came out from the Rangers supporters yesterday that said, "Stilwell and Stewart, pack your bags or we'll pack them for you." That time's come, and there's no getting away from this now. And that's going to happen whether they like it or not. And I think you've seen the scenes, everyone's seen the videos. Scotty, this can't continue. This has to end now with those two losing their jobs, because the fundamental issue here is them two, and that's been seen across the board. So, look, no, I'm disgusted by it all. I've been a Rangers fan for 39 years, and I don't think we've been in a position to take administration, all that stuff, and everything that happened. This is the worst I've ever seen a Rangers in any situation, and it's got to stop. Rangers, this is not Rangers. This is something that needs to be looked at seriously to understand what is going on behind the scenes there, because something serious is happening. And look, maybe something good will come of it. Maybe we will get a new lease of life out the back of this. But until those two gentlemen are out the door, then I don't see Rangers continuing in the shape that they need to at this moment in time.
Yep, 100%, 100%. I think it's at a stage now where I says on the pod earlier with Billy, Ryan and Dean that we were getting run like Watford and Vladimir Romanov's hearts.
Yeah.
And I don't really think there's any way of getting away from it. If Gerrard came to the table, walked. Now, I believe that Gerrard came to the table, spoke to Marathi and Kavanagh. This is just opinion. I believe he got to the same stage Muscat was at, went and spoke to Thelwell and Stewart, and then decided, nope, not for me. Guys, if you're new to the channel, please head on over to YouTube and hit the like and subscribe button. Be appreciated. So, Chris, where do we go for here? Do we go down the interim manager route? I'm going to, while you're answering, I'm going to look up some folk. I mean, with Robbie Nielsen, it's laughable. It's a laughable suggestion, but would Robbie Nielsen come in and be able to steady ship to the end of the season? Is that where we are? Do we need to get somebody to end the season? I mean, this is just turning into a farce. So, I mean, we can't appoint a manager. We need to stop this and start again, if you ask me.
Scotty, I'm laughing there because one of my pals sent me a message the other day, right, and it had Robbie Nielsen's a picture on it, and underneath it had Rangers interim manager to end the season, and I guaranteed him that's never going to happen. Right, now doing that, I'll lose all credibility if he turns out as being the next interim manager at Rangers. So if that's so, well, so for me, no, it can't be him. Look, I think you're right. There's going to need to be some. The Chris Jack statement. I was just trying to find it there to read it out. To see what it's saying. Let me just get it up, because there's a point in it which was really interesting for me. I'm just trying to find the statement again. I can't find it, but if you give me 2 seconds, I'll get it. The part where he says, talks have reached an advanced stage, but the deal not completed. So, look, yep, same as Gerrard. Probably same as Danny Rowe as well, if we're going to go with that one, where he's walked away from it. Rangers aim to make an appointment in the coming days. Who are they going to appoint right now? Who in their right mind is going to turn around and say, I'll take it? And I was watching the podcast earlier, Scott, and I said, for me, the only person I think would take this and he'll lead by his heart rather than his head is Barry Ferguson. He's the only one I think would come back to the table for Rangers right now because he knows what needs to be done. Rangers fans will accept
he's the only one daft enough to take it as well, let's be honest
totally.
about it.
That's it. But the thing is, the Rangers fans are not going to, as much as Barry Ferguson is a Rangers man, 95% of the Rangers fans have said they don't want Barry Ferguson as the next manager of Rangers Football Club. Now, I've advocated for Barry for a long time on here, alongside some others that are in that who are in the position and they pulled out. But that's the way it's going to go at the moment. That's the only way I can see it ending up. And for me, if you're going to put an interim in play, then you need somebody like Barry Ferguson in there. If you're not going to go in an interim, it needs to be a big name. The names like, for example, Solskjaer or Michael Carrick or whatever was being said, those names are not going to come to fruition on this. Rangers fans are not going to accept that. And that's why I think they have to appoint somebody who knows the club, and knows the club inside out, and that could be your likes of Barry Ferguson. I think he's going to be the one that might step up in the back of this, because the Rangers board know they need to do something and they need to do something quick. But the first thing they should be doing before they appoint a manager is getting Fairwell and Stewart out of the club. That's the first thing they should be doing before any new manager is appointed. Now, we've got a big game on Thursday. Is Stevie Smith the guy to take us to the big game on Thursday? No, he's not. He's a 19s coach. He's not. I know you said earlier on, Scotty, that he knows the players and stuff. He knows the players as much as the next guy. He spent maybe 3-4 days with them maximum when the guys that come back from international duty. We need somebody in there who is going to be there for a longer time, whether it's interim or whether it's however long it's going to be off the back of that. But it can't be Stevie Smith. If Stevie Smith goes into Thursday's game against Bran, then I think we're in trouble. I really do. And I just don't think it's going to get any better. And look, that's going to come at a worse time for Rangers at the moment, based on everything else that's happening in Scottish football at the moment. It really couldn't. And I think that's what's hurting and angering a lot of Rangers fans at the moment. There's a real opportunity there, and we've not grasped that opportunity this season, which is a real shame. But look, is this what Rangers need at the moment? This kick up the backside to get them into a better shape going forward. It could be that, mate.
Dave, welcome. Chris Jack says in his tweet that Rangers aim to make an appointment in the coming days. Do you think Dumb and Dumber have got a man lined up? Dave.
Sorry, I'll just try to get off mute. Yeah, you know what? They probably have, mate. They probably have. I mean, where do you even start? You know, what is the... So, I guess in answer to your question, yes, I think absolutely they will have someone lined up. I think the problem that we've got is you've already seen Gerrard, who was supposedly going to be the man to take us forward, turned it down because of the situation. Now Muscat, he's turned it down because of the situation that he'd be working under, right? Who are they going to be attracting that is actually going to be willing to work under them? It's going to be some nobody, mate. It's going to be some kind of yes man that will smile sweetly at the press, you know, try and sell the right things. Basically, it's going to be another Russell Martin. So someone that will, you know, I'm sure have full belief in themselves, think that they're going to do all the rest of it, but actually will just turn out to be a complete disaster, mate.
Dave, do we go down the Robbie Nielsen route? Alec McLeish. This is the lengths. This is how bad it is for me now. I think we need to avoid an appointment and go down the interim route for me, and we need somebody that knows the club. What's your thoughts?
Who are you even getting as an interim?
Robbie Nielsen's
Scotty. Huh?
Robbie Nielsen's out of work. Former Hearts
Robbie
manager.
Nielsen. Right, okay.
I mean, it's well.
I know. And I think for me, actually, it sounds stupid after just a couple of months, right? That this is a pivotal moment for Kavanagh and Maraf, right? They spoke to Muscat. They agreed a deal in principle, right? They obviously were convinced he was the man to take us forward. He's had one conversation with Stewart and Philwell and gone, yeah, forget that, I'm out of here. Really?
I know.
I mean, yeah, okay, we can talk about Nielsen. Look, in the end of the day, you'll find someone that'll take the job, right? It's a big job. There's a lot of barely experienced coaches out there just making their way in the game. You'll absolutely find someone that will rock up and take it. And come the end of it, you know, they can just point, well, club's that much a basket case. It wasn't really my fault anyway. So it's a bit of a free hit, but where does that leave us on the pitch? You know, if you're looking for basically a yes man that's just going to nod and agree, what do you think we're going to see on the pitch when we're already saying that mentality is one of the biggest issues, right? So we're going to employ someone that is going to be a complete yes man, have no backbone, and we're then going to expect him to instill a mentality in the players so that, I mean, we've seen yesterday the players can play, right? First half, fine. Second half, mentality hits, right? Who the hell is fixing that is going to work under Stewart and Felwell?
That's true. That's true. I'm getting a lot of stick in the comments because I suggested Robbie Nielsen, but no, I didn't. I didn't suggest him as such. I don't want him just to get out there, right? But I just feel as if this is where we are. This is where we're at now. In terms of interim options, there's nobody. There's nobody else that can come in on an interim basis. I don't want Barry Ferguson back away. Barry Ferguson behaved after he left the club, feeding news to Daily Record. It left a sour taste in my mouth. I'm sorry. It won't be a popular opinion within the comments either. Barry Blue's chances of a job. He's lucky to still be an ambassador, if you ask me. But that's just my opinion. Stevie, how you doing?
Evening, lads. My dinner's kind of turning in my stomach, to be honest. This is pretty brutal news, but almost not unexpected. The way it went with Gerrard, it's just a repeat and rinse and mince. You mentioning Robbie Nielsen there, Scotty. I mean, you're getting stuck in the comments, but it's probably a fair reflection of where we are as a club. Do you know what I mean? There's really serious questions. I guess we all thought in the end of May that like the new ownership, proper governance, things would improve. But looking back now with hindsight, the fact that they've appointed Martin and they're now absolutely struggling to get somebody in, maybe that's where they are. You know what I mean? That they're simply not up to this task. I go back to that supporter in the hotel in Austria after the game against Graz when he confronted Thelwell. And they were, well, who do you want? Like, who do you want to replace Martin? They've not even been thinking about replacing Martin. So essentially, the fans' pressure have basically forced Martin out. They've forced the hand of the board and the director of football, and they've been totally unprepared for day one. You know, it's such a bleak situation, and you contrast it with across the city, and obviously the struggles they're having. That are still a million times better than what we are, unfortunately. But you know, this was a season we could have actually really made a fist of the league in 156, but it's not happening now, not for us.
100%. I feel as if I've started up my Robbie Nielsen campaign just by dropping a suggestion, man. The comments are like, where's this Nielsen stuff coming from? It's a daft suggestion on my part, because I believe that we need an interim to take the team while we can sort this fucking shambles out. That's all it is. It's not that he's on his way and he's flying in for fucking Hamilton or something now. He's not taking the job. He's not even been linked. It was just a suggestion, right? So everybody stand down.
Scotty, who's to say he'd actually take it?
Well, aye, definitely. Every Rebecca one as well, saying the exact same thing. Silence, absolutely deafening. I had a good go at Thelwell and Stewart when I pulled the pod up earlier on. Chris.
Scotty.
Yes, Dave.
Can I ask you a question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to what I was saying when I first came on. We as fans, all right, we slate Felwell and Stewart. Absolutely. I get that. We're emotive, right? We have that emotional investment that the board are paid not to have. They're paid to make business decisions for the best of the club, right? How is it possible for Kavanagh and Morath not to have serious doubts about their position now, given that they identified Muscat, they had positive talks with him, they had an agreement in principle with him, and then, as I say, one interview with these two clowns, and the boy's off ski. He'd rather stay in China, right? Is this not like a light bulb moment for they two to think, hold on a minute, you know, we had a man lined up and he's run for the hills?
Aye.
Can I do a related report to David there? Sorry.
Of course you can.
just thinking, right, we're absolutely hammering Thelwell and Stewart, which is quite right. They're definitely at fault for a lot of stuff. But ultimately, they're employed by the owners, by the Americans. Should we be actually focusing on them now? Because they're letting this happen. They let Martin happen. They let Gerrard get away. They're letting Muscat get away. Ultimately, the buck has got to stop with them. I know Thelwell's director of football, but are we focusing too much on these two, Hoddit and Doddit, as opposed to the guys who actually own the club? Just a thought.
That's exactly what I'm getting at, Stevie, because ultimately, all right, Gerrard, maybe happens once, you could understand it, but like I said, Muscat was their man, right? They did the groundwork on this. Now, they ultimately decide if Thelwell and Stewart stay in a job. If these guys, right, I'm not being funny, Kavanagh shouldn't be appointing a manager. In the end of the day, that's Thelwell's job. So Kavanagh's already had to step up and say, look, basically, I don't trust you enough to do your job, pal. I'm going to do it for you. Does all the legwork, and then the boy still manages to mess it up. This has to be a light bulb moment where they say, hang on, we got the wrong guy. Actually, we need to get rid of these and get some competent people in. And if they don't, I think their tenure sours extremely quickly, to be honest.
Aye, sure does. It's an absolute shit show from start to finish. There's no getting away from it. There's no getting away from it. Chris, there's a lot of people putting suggestions in the comments. David Healy's one. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I suppose when you go to give somebody a job, you formulate a list. You get CVs in and you look at who's the best, and then you get them. Like you've got your A pile, your B pile, and your C pile. I think we're on to E pile, to be honest with you. Slaven Bilic is another one that's been mentioned. It's a name that's not really been going away over the last week. Would he be somebody you'd be comfortable with?
No, Bilic's no. 100%. I wouldn't touch Bilic. Ole at a push, I think. Look, I liked him when he was at Man U. I liked what he did initially at Man U. But I don't think he's the guy. He went and had a bad time at Besiktas as well. Ole's not the guy for me. No, I think now it needs to be. If it's not Barry, and that's fine, I'm okay with that. But it needs to be somebody who knows Rangers, somebody who knows this club at this moment to get the club through. We need a figurehead at the club at the minute, and we need somebody who's going to be able to get Rangers through this, because let's not kid ourselves. This is going to be a rocky few months to the end of the season. I'm looking at the season for me is gone now, right? I know we're talking about the Scottish Cup. I know we're talking about the League Cup and things. Look, League Cup, anything can happen in the 2nd of November between the two teams because we're both that bad. But this team can't. We've not won a game in, is it 5 months? A league game in 5 months or something, I think it is the start of saying. Who's to say we're going to go and win a Scottish Cup? Who's to say we're going to go and win a League Cup? It's not going to happen as far as I'm concerned right now, based on what I'm seeing just now. So what Rangers need at this moment in time is a figurehead to get them back through. Now, I wouldn't. Again, some people are saying Big Ek and stuff. He's the type absolutely you would want. He's not fit for the job anymore, and I don't think he would want to step into it, right? So I'm struggling to think who would come in and take that on. That's where my big concern is. Who would be the ones that come in? I don't even think Neil McCann on his own to the end of the season would be the right one to come in. As much as I hate to say it again, Scotty, because I agree with you, Fergie released a lot of things to the papers and the press and stuff. He is the only one I can see coming in and trying to be that figurehead. Somebody that the fans can maybe rally around a little bit, and let's not kid ourselves. He fought two good managers and turned two good managers over, and both away from home. So he knows a bit about football, and he can probably do something for us. But for me, as Dave and Stevie says, look, this isn't just now on Thelwell and Stewart. They need to go, and they need to go quickly. But Kavanagh and Marathi, they need to be careful here, because Rangers are going to turn really quickly. Rangers fans are going to turn really quickly. They've started already, Scotty, and they're going to get worse than this one, because we're in a position now where this is the third, potentially even the fourth. Right? Let's go through the list. You had Gerrard was the first one. Then you heard Danny Rowe had left. Before those two, we'd even heard Sean Dyche had conversations and said he didn't want to be part of it. Sean Dyche would have been a stick on the fact that he'd worked with Thelwell previously, so he must look at that structure and think, I'm having none of that, so I'm not going to get anywhere near it. So there's three at least. Okay, yes, you've got Muscat who's walked away and said no. Again, that's another red flag because something's happened there where he doesn't feel part of it. Now, you've got the likes of Ole, who we didn't even know that came from Paul Scholes, that Ole had been speaking to Rangers. Nobody knew about that. Nobody had any clue that was going on. So the question then is, who's the other managers that nobody has a clue about that's been in there talking behind the scenes? And that's what it's going to be interesting. But for Rangers to come out and say they look to appoint a manager in the coming days, that for me tells me it's going to be down the interim route, Scotty, because there's no way in hell they'll get somebody set up at this moment in time, unless, as we've all said, it's a yes man who's going to come in and do what that board want them to do. But see, if it is a yes man, Ibrox will be half empty every game between now and the end of the season until there's a figurehead in there, because these fans are not going to accept it. And we've had enough. Enough's enough. There needs to be a root and branch now clear out of that club, and it needs to start with those guys and bring in David Weir as a technical director. That's what needs to happen, and let that guy rerun this club and get that club back to where it needs to be, because right now, Rangers Football Club, as far as I'm concerned, is dying in front of our eyes until somebody gets something sorted with it. If we don't, we're going to become third, fourth rate team in Scotland in the next year or two, because other teams are going ahead of us, other teams are getting better, they're getting their house in order. Rangers are getting worse at the moment. Okay, we know financial issues from what we know about, and I stress from what we know about, because we don't know what's happening behind the scenes at the moment money-wise, but you assume everything's okay. But we've got nothing on the park, we've got nothing on the manager side of it, and that's the most important thing to the Rangers fans at the moment, and that's what Rangers need to get sorted. If they don't, you're going to lose a lot of fans, and you're not going to get them back again.
I'm having a quick look at manager roads. Danny Rowe 20-21, Neil McCann 23-20, Sean Dyche 23-20, Solskjaer 65, Gerrard 75, Hassan, Hutnell and Robinson. Robinson's the only one on that list I would take. To be brutally honest.
Solskjaer done a good job at Man United.
Solskjaer anywhere near my club,
mate.
Stevie.
He did a really good job at Man United with Josie's squad. Within a couple of years, the quality started to leave that squad, and they went downhill rapidly. He inherited a decent Jose Mourinho Man United team. Yeah, we maybe lost the dressing room, but they still had a lot of quality. As soon as Solskjaer was there, they kind of got them back on side for a while. But over time, no touch it. He's never a Rangers manager. We need somebody who knows Scottish football. No doubt about
that. 100%. Stephen Robinson's probably my favourite one, if I'm being honest. Dave, what about you? Do you agree with the whole interim manager route or permanent appointment? What you want to see?
I think right now you hate to go interim, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because actually who you appoint as manager at the minute's irrelevant, Scotty. Doesn't fucking matter, mate. Sorry for the swearing, but it just doesn't, right? Until you get those two Muppets out the club, any manager that you appoint is going to fail, right? So get an interim in. That way they're no tarred, yeah? So, interim sees out this season. We get rid of the two clowns. You've not got what inevitably pain is still going to come this season, right? I know we're all sitting here thinking it's bad. I don't see it getting any better for as long as these two guys are in charge. And I'll tell you another thing, as much as we all want rid of them, yeah, if Philwell was going, the time to do that would be when Kavanagh had to release a statement saying he was going to do Philwell's job for him and appointing a manager. If he didn't sack him after that, I don't see him going anytime soon. As much as he has to for us to move forward as a club, I just don't see it, mate.
I agree. I agree with you, mate. Thank you to Colin for gifting 10 Rangers Journal memberships. It's much appreciated. Stevie, what you want in the club? Oh, Chris, you want to come in?
Just because I came in there just off the back of Dave, Scotty. So I want to read something out, and this was from the statement from Thelwell and Kavanagh a few weeks back, right? And this is the part that's most important. So I want to read it out really quickly. It says, a rigorous, thoughtful recruitment process is already underway, and we are treating with the urgency it deserves. The two of us are deeply involved, and the evaluation will have our full attention until we are confident that we have a leader with the character and skill set to deliver results. That there in itself tells you everything you need to know. If they're saying that the other ones we're going to do, why the hell is this getting passed on to the likes of Thelwell, Steinson as well, whose name is up there, and Patrick Stewart? Why are they even getting involved in the process? Get the guy in, get the guy signed and delivered, then you pass them on to those guys once you need to, right? Because obviously he's going to need to work with them. They shouldn't be anywhere near this situation until this manager's in, signed, sealed, and delivered, as far as I'm concerned. And that's where Thelwell and Kavanagh and Marathi now need to take a long, hard look at themselves and say, because my understanding is Kavanagh's away back to America, right? He's not in London. That's my understanding. He's away back, and he's been back there for what, 2 or 3 days now, they're saying. So if he's back over there and Marathi's away doing the stuff with Leeds or the 49ers, they're not putting their full attention to this. They're just jumping from the next man to the next man. And let's be honest, Kevin Muscat, from their point of view, wasn't the first choice, right? Kevin Muscat was a fan's push. Okay, now Gerrard's walked away from it. Let's get Muscat in. And that's where they went. So they're trying to, you can see why they're trying to appease the fans, right? But that tells me there is absolutely no leadership from them. There's absolutely no leadership across Rangers at all at the moment, because they don't have that thoughtful list and process in play that says, you know what, if X person leaves, Y person's going to come in. They don't have that at the moment. God, I'm seeing names at the moment. Big Ange. I would take Big Ange at the moment if I had to, because at the end of the day, he's a manager who might do something for us. I know Stevie's shaking his head and saying no, but look, it's that desperate. That's how bad we've got. I would take Ange before I would take Robbie Nielsen, put it that way. It's where I'm at the minute with it. But look, I'm ingesting with Big Ange there. I really am. I wouldn't take Big Ange. But for me, it's got to be a Rangers man. It cannot be someone who is a yes man here. Rangers need to get this sorted and need to get this sorted quickly. There needs to be an appointment in for Thursday, whether it's interim, whether it's full time. There needs to be an appointment in for Thursday. Thursday becomes our biggest game so far of the season, because we need the result, we need the money from that, and we need to push on. And if we get a result on Thursday in Europe, you never know what happens from then and how it goes. But if you don't get a result on Thursday, you can kiss Europe goodbye as well. We're out of that at that stage as well, because we're not going to do anything in that. So for me, Thursday and Saturday there are probably the two most important games that Rangers have had this season, based on everything that's going on. And they need to get this manager situation sorted. But it can't be Stevie Smith, and it can't be somebody who's just going to be a yes man, because the fans will not accept that. And we'll be back here in 4 months' time having the same pod about a new manager's coming in. I guarantee it, honestly.
Dave, you want to come in?
Hi. So I get entirely, right, Big Ange, total jest, right? None of us want him because of his previous connections. I get all that, right? But even just say he was a serious candidate for a minute. There's absolutely no chance he takes that job working under those two clowns. He's got a bit of character about him. Whether you like him or not is irrelevant. He does have character. He's able to kind of fight his corner, etc. There's no way he works for those two Muppets. Not a chance. And that is the same problem we are going to have with any kind of character as a manager. They are not going to come and work under Stuart and Villa.
Aye, definitely.
Can we stop talking about ex-Celtic managers for the Rangers job, even in jest? Let's just put that away. Seriously.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
I think, like, just to go back to Thelwell, I mean, it's like it's gross misconduct the way he's handled the entire transfer window. Cermetti, Neil left back, no signing Cherney, Shanklin, Mulligan on frees. There was so much potential to get business done and good business for Scottish football. And then you've got his nepotism and his cronyism. I mean, how any other walk of life, any other business, you'd be at the door. You'd be getting investigated for the way he's handled this. So I'm amazed he's still there. Really poor. To answer your question, Scotty, what do I want for Rangers? I fully agree we need an interim manager in straight away. It's a hard job to sell, as I've just covered. Who really wants the job in this situation? So again, it comes back to the owners. They need to really sweep these two away and make quick appointments, and then we'll hopefully get a decent manager in. But in the short term, it's really difficult. You know, who actually wants the gig? Is there maybe an ex-player out there who's maybe coming to the end of his career? Somebody mentioned Scotty Arfield. That sounds mad, but somebody like him would actually get the fans on side. I don't know if he would fancy it or no, because like I say, it's such a tough gig with the kind of upheaval and the unknowns and what they're dealing with behind the scenes. There's just so much uncertainty. I was really hoping for Muscat. Gerrard and Muscat, like my heart said Gerrard, but my head said Muscat, because he's got the CV, he's won trophies in different countries, he improves players, he plays a decent brand of football, he's aggressive, he seems like a proper leader of men. So I was like, finally we're going to make the right decision, and it's pulled for us. Do you know what I mean? It's typical Rangers for the last however many consecutive boards. I think we need to look at the ownership as well. I don't know if these guys are up to it. They've done well at Leeds, relatively, but it's not translating to Rangers and Scottish football. I mean, the director of football, his director is still like 6th in the league and bottom of the Europa League. that's the direction we're going in with these guys. Not good enough.
If you're watching over on Twitter or Facebook, please head on over to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that smash that subscribe button for us. It really helps us go a long way. Chris, I've got Ben Jacobs here on Twitter, and he is saying the official line coming for the club. Hold on, I'll just read it out. Kevin Muscat's Rangers move is now off. Rangers informed the day it followed advanced talks, but Muscat had second thoughts on his fit within the recruitment model. Although Rangers sources insist Muscat wishing to finish off the Chinese Super League presented a stumbling block, the former Rangers defender was not sold on the recruitment model, wanting more control on the market if he joined. Also worth noting, Muscat made it clear to Rangers from the start of talks he wouldn't be available until the Chinese Super League ended, or if any earlier Shanghai Port won the title with games to spare. Thoughts?
I don't blame him for that, Scotty. Look, I know we've had conversations about this over the last few days, and people were saying, look, we have to think about Rangers. Like, if that guy had came in and something had happened, we'd be shouting from the rooftops about him. Excuse me. If he'd done to us what we were asking him to do to Shanghai Port. So I give him credit for that, Scotty, if I'm honest, in terms of wanting to stick around and seeing that at the end of it. The other thing, look, if this guy doesn't think he fits, and I as much as it hurts me to say this, I say the same with Gerrard as well. If they don't think that the structure behind the scenes is right for them, then why would they put their name to it? I mean, there's no reason for them to put their name to it and put their reputation on the line if this structure isn't right. And that's why everyone in their dog can see that this structure that Rangers have got is not fit for a club like Rangers Football Club. And the thing for me is overall that Rangers don't have a head coach position. That's not what it is. It's a manager position who the manager should be signing off all the recruitment that's coming into the club, right? But in a way where it's structured so that it's not just him signing that off on his own like Michael Beale had, the full carte blanche. It should be a discussion, it should be an agreement, it should be a process. But ultimately, the manager's reputation is on the line because he has to work with those players. So he's obviously going to have that final say and sign off. And that's the way it should be at Rangers. There's no other getting away from that. The problem you've got is the only type of manager who is, as Dave said, is going to accept that as a yes man. That's the problem we've got at the moment. Now, don't get me wrong, there's probably really good yes men out there, right? People that we've not even thought about. It's probably really good. But I would like Mitch put a comment on about when I was saying the Rangers men scenario, right? I hate that. I hate people saying that phrase where it's a Rangers man or a Hibs man, a Hearts man. So I hate the phrase, but you've got to use it for this circumstance to understand what I'm talking about. For me, if you're looking at Rangers at the moment, okay, if we're saying Barry Ferguson's not the guy and we can't take him, right? And Rangers want to go down this route of head coach and they're going to buy into things, then I think we need to be looking at somebody like maybe Stephen Davis, right? Stephen Davis is assistant at Northern Ireland at the moment. He done okay for us when he stepped in before Clermont came in. But you would want Stephen Davis with a coaching staff around him who knows the game. Somebody like that. Or maybe another one that comes to mind, Kevin Thompson. Somebody like Kevin Thompson coming in and maybe doing a job and have an experienced structure around them, right? Somebody's put the name in it, Stephen A. Smith. Rangers fans wouldn't accept Stephen A. Smith, right? But that's what we're talking about in terms of the type of player or type of manager you're going to go for. Somebody who has been that connection with Rangers have done it, but they've got a coaching structure around them that can support them. Now, I don't think the likes of Defoe or anybody like that is somebody you're going to need around a coaching structure. You need somebody who's been in the game and coached and managed and can handle situations like Saturday where in that 55th minute, we knew what was going to happen. We could see it coming. And a more experienced coaching staff, in my opinion, made changes, make tweaks to that, gets you through that game to a 1-0, 2-1 maybe. That's what Rangers are needing at the moment. They need that experienced heads around them, whether it's an experienced head around a yes man or whether it's an experienced head leading it from the front. That's what we need. But if we can't get that experienced head, go for someone like Davis, go for someone like Kevin Thompson, and put some background staff around them who can help guide them. And I think the fans would buy into that more than a yes man at the front, Helm, who's just going to be there for the board and appease the board, because the fans won't accept that. One it would come in well with that would be David Weir to come in and run the structure behind the club, and then you put your Stephen Davis type scenario in with people around that. That for me would be a much better scenario for Rangers, and I think the fans would buy into that a lot more than what they would if you've got a Michael Carrick or a Danny Rowe or an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. The fans are not going to buy that. They would buy the alternative version of it, I think, though.
Definitely. Dave, I'm going to hand over to you because I'm bouncing off, mate. I've been on already today. All right.
Worries, mate.
Cheers,
No
boys.
worries.
See that.
Cheers, lads.
Take care, Scotty.
Can I come back to
So-
Chris on that, mate? Sorry.
Yeah, batter on, Stevie.
I think that's a great shout, what you said there. I think Davis and Thompson would be cracking coaches because they've got that, that background, that winning mentality of Rangers. Controversial shout, but Phil Clement, is he still on the payroll? He's just kicking his heels on the gardening leave now. I'd take him back. That's as bad things I've got. I would take Clement back. Seriously, I think he's a better shout than a lot of the names that we've been mentioning there.
I don't disagree, to be fair, mate. One of the things that I kind of touched on in an article I did before is that need for leadership. Do you think some of these interims that we're talking about, I'm not opposed to the idea, and I get that they are Rangers men, although you say you don't like that, Chris, but I get the point. They understand the kind of demands in that, but do you think they've got almost the gravitas about them to go into that dressing room and inspire folks? Because again, I think the players are capable of more than we're actually seeing a lot of the time. I think that first half kind of proved it to an extent. I mean, obviously there's a lot of work to do from that, but it was better than it had been. But do you think they've got the gravitas to kind of change that mentality? Because realistically, it's a mentality problem as much as anything at the minute, isn't it, with the players?
I think Sir Alex could go in there, Dave, and probably not change the mentality of some of these players, if I'm being honest. And I use Sir Alex at his peak, right? On that one, not Sir Alex now, but it was at his peak. Jack Butland said it after the game last night, and I know it was embargoed to today, but he wonders what's going through the heads of some of those players, is what he said, right? That's damning in itself, because look, we all watched that game yesterday, and we knew when it hit, I think the 55th minute, we had a bit of a situation where Cornelius had nearly gave the ball away in the box and they nearly got a chance from it. And you could feel the whole atmosphere around the place change at Ibrox yesterday, 55th minute. That's when it happened. And at that point in time, you've got to think to yourself, right, okay, everybody stick together and make sure that we get through this next 10, 15 minutes without giving a goal away, and we'll try and go up and score. 6 minutes later, you give a goal away, right? And you knew it was coming from it. You knew the situation, how it was turning. And from that 60th, 55th, 60th minute onwards, you knew exactly what was going to happen, Rangers. And fair play, look, we got the goal back and Tav scored to make it 2-each. Maybe under Russell Martin that wouldn't have happened, because the atmosphere around the stadium would have been totally different again. It'd have been even worse than what it was yesterday. So, to me, if someone like Stephen Davis comes in, Dave, right, or Kevin Thompson, are they going to have the stature and command the respect of someone like Walter Smith walking in there? Not a chance, right? No way, they're not going to command the same respect. But what these guys will do is they will instill a winning mentality into Rangers, as far as I'm concerned, because they know what it's like. They've been there with Rangers. They know what Walter Smith gave to them and how he instilled that winning mentality. And I think they will do the exact same, because they know the demands that the fans place on all the players. Now, we'll probably do another pod on this at some point in time, but the players need to step up and take responsibility for their part in this as well, because it is their mentality, it is their thinking and the way they're doing things that's possibly got us in this position as well, because they're not performing to the way they should perform. And I think that was so evident yesterday. The first half, okay, it wasn't spectacular, but the first half you were looking at as Dundee United had one chance on goal, I think it is, in the first half, and Rangers had 70% of the possession. That was a Rangers performance that you would normally expect to see at home, and dominating the team and take the chance. Okay, we missed some chances, but dominated that first half. The second half was the Russell Martin performance. That's what we've been seeing over the last few months. So the players can do it. It is there. They now need to push this on, and they need to get this. They need to get us back to winning ways again, and they'll get that there. But they need someone who can give them a bit of guidance. And look, Stevie Smith, I'm not bashing Stevie Smith here at all, but I'm saying don't give it to him. I just don't think Stevie Smith is a guy. I don't think he's got the support structure around him with that Brian Gilmore and Rhys Owen and Sal Bilbo. I don't think that's a structure for Rangers at the moment. They need to get in. For me, if you're going to get in that route, Stephen Davis, Kevin Thompson, they're the types of ones you want in there, and maybe put an experienced head in, maybe get an experienced background member into that as well. Now, you could do worse than bringing back someone who's been there in the background. I'm trying to think of names at the moment. I can't think of off the top of my head, but someone that's been around the club previous years in the background and knows what happens. That's what they maybe need in the background there. But they'll get a tune out of them. And then the club need to decide whether you're going to have them as short term or long term. That's the next stage of it. But I think the likes of Stephen Davis or Kevin Thompson or Barry Ferguson or whoever it's going to be, they'll get a better reaction from the Rangers fans than what somebody new coming into this will be. Because I think, Stevie, you said it, somebody new coming into this will be like, I'm here for 4 or 5 months, I'll take the pay I get after the end of it if it doesn't go right. That's their thinking on it. They're not thinking this is about Rangers. You need people in there who know the club and know what's going on, because they've got it hurt as much as what we're hurting. And those ones out there, look, Barry Ferguson will be hurting more than anybody at the moment, as much as we don't want him in as the number one in it. He'll be hurting more than anyone. But I look at his style and what he said he was going to do for Rangers, which was bring in your Shanklins, bring in the boy at Hibs, Bowie, and the defender at Hibs stuff. We're all saying it. We're all saying the same stuff. That is the way Rangers should be going at the moment. So if we're all saying it and we're all thinking that's the right way it should be going, why are we not bringing these guys in who are making those suggestions? Would be my thought on it. And your Barry Ferguson's, if he got in there and what was it, Issam Chirai, he would have left at that point in time. You would have probably seen maybe a Kevin Thompson or a Stephen Davis come into that coaching staff as well. I wouldn't have been surprised with one of them coming in if Barry Ferguson would have got it. So look, if that's what we're looking at and that's what we're seeing, bring the guys in, give them a chance. They can't do any worse, Dave, than what's going on at Ibrox at this moment in time. They really can't.
Stevie, genuine question. Stephen Davis, Kevin Thompson, etc. Do you think they actually say yes with these guys? I know we're kind of operating under the assumption that these guys are Rangers men and, they'd crawl over broken glass, but obviously they're going to have a career after the next few months. And actually, is there an argument that working under the likes of Felwell and Co could do that much damage to their reputation? It could harm their future career?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, like, why would they want to work for them? It might be difficult to get these guys in. I mean, Kevin Thompson been treated pretty poorly by the club in the summer. They let him go there when, to me, he's a really good guy to have around the place in some capacity. Much like, in previous eras when you had a John Gregg or a Sandy Jardine just in the building, just to remind people like what the actual standard is to play for Rangers. To me, he's a great example of that. And he's got the link to Walter Smith as well. So yeah, difficult. I'd say, to be honest, Stevie Smith in the post-match yesterday, he came across really well. He was absolutely dead honest. He was to the point. He kind of called the game exactly as we all saw it. So I thought he kind of handled himself really well, and he was really kind of stressing the consistency. Is like, this club needs consistency every single day in training, which really impressed me, because I was like, you can tell this is a guy who played under Walter Smith. He's got that standard. He's seen it, what it takes to be a successful Rangers player. So he knows. So to be honest, I wouldn't mind him staying in charge for the next however month, or just, we're 2 weeks to an Old Firm semi-final at Hampden. Do you know what I mean? It's like a huge game, and we're like scratching about, like getting rejected by managers here, there, and everywhere. It's a very, very difficult situation. So if the players if they are responding, which they seemed to yesterday in the first 45, that's the most chances I've seen us creating this season. Essentially, they looked like decent and cohesive going forward. A bit more confidence. Asgard was a different player. If Smith's done that for 45 minutes, I would be tempted just to let him go. I agree, get him some backup with the coaching as well, but I think that's something we need to look at. See how Thursday goes next weekend. I suppose he's just day by day, but if there's no Muscat, there's no Gerrard, there's nobody coming in. Let him run with it and try and sort the director of football, the CEO, try and get that sorted, and then we can maybe move forward, because this season, to me, I've said it before, last few days, league's gone. I don't like people. We can still win it. It's only October. Yes, we're almost into November, and we've won one league game with a last minute win at Livingston. No team in the history of football has got this far in the season, winning one league game and then turned it completely around. So that's just delusional to think we're going to do that. But we can focus on the Scottish Cup, try and win the Scottish Cup, get Europa League football next season. I would throw everything at that.
And Chris, just kind of stepping aside from the Rangers guys for a minute. So obviously we know these guys love the club, but if I'm being totally honest, I don't think, for as long as Felwell's here, I don't see him going for Rangers men or whatever you want to term them as. I mean, it's probably more likely to have a second cousin that he'll hire as his manager. But I guess the question is, if Thelwell does go that route and, not second cousin, but appoint someone outside of Rangers, someone that we don't know, do you think there's any chance the fans actually accept that? Because we already saw with Martin that, if the fans are against it from the off, it's going to be very, very hard for a new manager. Do you think there's actually anyone that Thelwell could sign that the fan groups will accept?
You could sign Jose Mourinho at the moment, Dave, and I don't think the fans would accept it because it would be a Kevin Thelwell signing, and that's more damning on Thelwell than it is anyone else at the moment, if I'm being honest. Because I think, Dave, looking at some of the, I was actually googling some of the names there to think who. There was a guy at Wolves previously, Gary O'Neill, I think his name was brought up on it. I wouldn't touch him with a barge pole, but he's got links to Thelwell as well. I know there was talk maybe having a conversation with Rangers at some point in time. But I don't think he would be one for the Rangers fans. He would be a yes man. And I think anybody that Thelwell's going to bring in for me would be yes men. This recruitment has to be done by Kavanagh and Marathi. They're the ones that need to sign this manager because it's on their heads be it. Now you can turn around and say Thelwell or Stewart can bring them in. Thelwell or Stewart are not going to be at Rangers much longer. We know that, right? The writing's on the wall for them. And I would be astonished if they're here still at this point in time, the end of the season, because they're going to go. Kavanagh and Marathi, when they start to see the numbers dwindle, European numbers, the hospitality, the season books, all that sort of thing, the first people that's going to go in that structure is the likes of Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, because they have presided over this calamity that we're here at the start of the season of. And Kavanagh and Marathi are not going to disappear. They've sunk best part of, and I don't know, anywhere between 50 to 100 million in this, right? So they're all in deep on this. They're not going to walk away anytime soon, but they need to have men who are going to take responsibility for what's happened. And the men who's going to take that responsibility is Thelwell and Stewart. So I don't think the Rangers fans will accept anybody coming in that's a Thelwell man, because we know that Thelwell's not going to be there in the long term, right? Now, if you brought in someone like David Weir and you said David Weir's your new technical director, he's the guy who's going to now see over recruitment, and he'll be the one who will be going for your new management team, right? If you did that and what do you call him? David Weir brought in, I don't know, let's say brought in Kevin Muscat or whoever it may be, right? The fans will be all in on it. Even if David Weir turned around and goes, you know what, I'm going to bring Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think the fans would be all in on it, because they probably know this is a David Weir guy. We can probably trust it, and we can trust the process behind it. We can't trust the process behind Thelwell and Stewart at the minute, and that's where they've lost the fans now, and they're never going to win that back. As soon as you lose them, it's gone. You're never going to get it back again. So for me, this has to be an appointment that Parag, Amarathi, and Andrew Kavanagh say, we've made this appointment and we've brought this guy into the club. That's how they'll get the fans backing on it. If it turns around another way, there is no chance you're going to get the backing from day one, Dave, because it'll be seen as a Stewart and a Thelwell signing, and we can't have that. We really can't. And that's where Rangers fans will turn again even worse. We've seen it on Saturday. We've seen the video from Saturday, the fans shouting and bawling to Stewart and Thelwell after the game. I just hope it doesn't get any worse. I don't want to get any worse. I think that needs to be the line in the sand that says enough's enough now, right? These guys know the situation. They know they've got to go. We can't advocate for anything else. We want to make sure that Thelwell and Stewart know that Rangers fans don't want them there. That's enough. We've done that. Over to Marathi and over to Kavanagh to say enough's enough. Take them at the firing line. Let's go into somebody else in there. That's what needs to happen at the moment. But it's just a shambles in how bad Rangers are. No manager. Needing to get rid of your chief exec, needing to get rid of your guys heading up your recruitment and all that stuff that goes with it. We've not got a COO. He's still been appointed, or he's only been an interim to the end of the season. The guy from Man U, which is a Stewart appointment. We're in a real shambles at the moment. And nobody would have ever thought this come the summer when the owners took in. Nobody thought that was going to be the case. But maybe the fact that it took so long to get this over the line, maybe the fact that it took so long to get a manager in, maybe the writing was already on the wall from day one. And this was a sign of things to come, because where we're at just now is an absolute shambles. And it really, it's a poor show from Rangers, because this was a real opportunity for Rangers this season to reclaim some of that dominance again, that we'll badly miss for years. And I'm sad to see it. I just can't see it happening. I really can't this season.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I would pull from that, right, is you can question their ability all you want, right? It's not been a great start for Kavanagh and Marath, but fundamentally there has been money put in, right? It's not like they've just kind of rocked up, pulled a Glazers at Man U and just leveraged all the debt on the club, etc. You know, there's actually money that's gone into this. So, Mitch, welcome to the kind of venting show, whatever you want to call
Welcome
it.
to the Thunderdome.
Obviously, the Grim Reaper himself has confirmed, as have Heart and Hand, Sky, etc. It's not going to be Muscat. We had a bit of a debate already. Would you go interim until the end of the season now, or would you be looking for a permanent manager to be appointed from this match?
So I'm going to be the voice of reason and the voice of logic for a minute, which is terrifying. I seen Stevie chuckling straight away. It
Mitch, your
terrifies me.
audio's a bit wonky, mate.
There you go, mate. Is that better?
Right.
Perfect. So the scary thing there is, Stevie had a chuckle, and so did I when I said I'll be the voice of reason. But and I want us to look at this completely emotionless. Take this out of our club for a minute. A compensation fee was agreed with Shanghai of this is what it's going to take to bring Kevin over. Now we're being dictated to by Kevin and Shanghai themselves. Now it's not chump change to bring him over. We're talking rumours are 1.3 to 1.5 million pound if Muscat was to come in. If I'm spending 1.5 million pound to bring a manager in, I'm not waiting to the end of November when the current state of play is what it is right now. And I think when you look at the performance yesterday, there was players on that park, particularly younger players under 23, screaming out for some experience from the touchline of what do I do in this situation. And no disrespect to Stevie Smith, I love him, through and through. He's a Rangers man all the way through. He's in a job, a poison chalice job, because if he does great, everybody clamours for him. Does honking, everybody says, well, he's only there as a babysitter, pretty much. There are plenty of managers out there at the moment, out of work or in work, but could be poached, that can take the job. But I think when you look at it from a sheer business perspective, and we have businessmen running the club as a business, if I'm spending $1.5 million to take a manager from a job, why are you telling me that I'm waiting to the end of November for you? And I get the sporting integrity argument, I get the opposite side to the argument, but fundamentally $1.5 million is $1.5 million. So if he's not willing to leave the job that he's in, rightly so, because he has his own reasons to stay where he is, then given the situation that we're in as our business requires a figurehead and a manager to be on the touchline now and in the training ground now. So is it only fair to say, well, do you know what? We get it, if the stars aligned in a different planet, everybody would have been in work right now and working away on it. But is it actually not more due diligence to walk away, and say, well, look, if you're not going to come now, then you're not coming? There is that argument, but yeah, I
don't buy that, Mitch. I don't buy that.
The answer to your question is that they've got more money than Rangers. That's why they can say no. You have to wait till his contract's up, then you pay us that. And I agree with David there. He's the right guy. Now we're absolutely scratching about at the bottom of the barrel to get anybody. Muscat ticked all the boxes. I get what you're saying, Mitch. It's a counter argument, but I'm the same. I don't see it that way, unfortunately.
But I think when you look at the game itself yesterday, there's so much of, and again, Stevie Smith, he got a tune for an hour out of the squad that the squad played without pressure. They didn't look like a Russell Martin team, i.e., 11 farts and a trance running about the park. Players seem to have an idea of this is where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think I've mentioned in the chat earlier on, there's a cracking interview that Will Still did with Sky during the week. I think it was Thursday night. where Russell Martin was there obviously for 2 years and Will Still took over the job obviously in the summer. The Southampton players after 2 years under Russell Martin had their free thinking taken out of them. Like, they almost had to be coached of, it's all right to go and do this. Like, if you've got an idea on the pitch, go and give it a bash. And it was basic stuff like the space on the pitch. Players being scared to move into space. And you're like, thankfully we've only had a cabbage in for 4 months, so it shouldn't be that difficult to undo that level of work. But I think with the Muscat news, it's a bit like Gerrard. Everybody put all the eggs in the basket. But during the whole process, until somebody's holding a scarf above their head, it's not done. And it's the world of recruitment in general at the moment of, you can have somebody that's the ideal candidate for any job, and until they're actually in the building, they're still just a candidate at that point. Until something's signed, nothing's done. And the way things have went since the takeover as well, it's clear that most people within media know next to nothing. They get fed tidbits through agents, disgruntled ex-employees and everything else. We don't know what was said in the negotiation room, and it could just be as simple as, look, this is the state of play right now. Maybe before we were happy to wait, but given the current situation, especially after the weekend, look, we actually need somebody in play right now. Dave's not having any of it. Look at him.
I'm not in that for a second there. Are we honestly to believe, right, that Steven Gerrard travelled several thousand miles, had multiple interviews, went all the way through the process just to decide the time isn't right? Swiftly followed by Kevin Muscat being the main man, job in principle already agreed. They knew from the off that he wanted to see it. We all knew, right? We were all debating it the second his name came out as a serious contender, because we knew that he had to see that season through, but suddenly it's not the right time. And yet we've got Tweedledum and Tweedledee doing whatever they do in the transfer market, telling managers that you're not going to have a say, we're going to pick your players, and you're just going to make do with them. And we think that it's timing and like lack of desire to leave his current team as opposed to maybe that transfer model.
I think the transfer model, and it's clear there's got to be some give on it and some adjustments made. Now, surely the 49ers have got to understand that now as well. Because when you look at this, and let's call them what they are, a sister club in Leeds, they don't have this merry-go-round and mess going on over there. I know they had the will they stick, will they twist, obviously, when it came to Farke in the summer about, are you the right man for the Premier League? And ultimately they were proven right this far to keep Farke in place. But no other club at any level right now sacks a manager 2 weeks ago, to be specific, 15 days ago. And we were told at the time when the statement came out, we're already on Tinder with managers at the moment, having a chat with them all. Well, if we were that far down the road as your statement told us, then why are we 15 days later? I get the Stevie G, if it was just one manager, and I will say that, if it was just one manager that walked away from it, you'd go, okay, whatever, something's happened there. Could be money, could be anything, could be the way that the pig flew over the moon this morning. To have two managers, it's almost like watching Chermiti in front of goal. To have two managers in front of an open goal and miss the target both times, it tells you that there is something more to it. Now, is some of it structure? Probably. Is some of it that maybe we went after too complicated targets when there was easier targets sitting right now? One of the names that won't go away right now is Slaven Bilic at the moment. His name's floated about now for the better part of a week. He's been available for about a year, give or take, since leaving Saudi. And you're like, there's a name right there waiting. You're like, surely we haven't just done the same thing that on paper it looks like we did with Stevie, where, we put all the eggs in the basket and then Stevie said no at the last minute for whatever reasons. But in the same token, surely we've not done the same thing again with Muscat. We must have had somebody else lined up, of the plan B, or, well, at this point, plan M, the backup to the backups. But we can't be, their statement tonight saying obviously they want to have somebody else in place in the coming days. Well, we've got a game in 4 days.
Yes. Stevie Smith, do you think there's a role for him when we get someone in to kind of give us a bit of continuity between where we are at the minute and where we're going to end up?
Definitely, Dave. And I think when I was talking to the managers the other, I wasn't trying to be bad about Stevie Smith by saying he's not the guy for us to take on. Right? I don't think that at all. I think he absolutely could be somebody who could bridge that gap at the moment and help transition anyone new into the role. I just don't see Stevie Smith being a Rangers manager going forward. I really can, and I think we've seen, as I said, for yesterday, we need an experienced head in there yesterday to manage that game from 50 minutes onwards. That's what we needed. If we had an experienced head in there yesterday done that, we wouldn't have dropped those points. We'd have won that game. Okay, we might have only won it maybe 1-0, 2-0. We would have still won the game if we had an experienced head in there. And I even go back to the likes of maybe even Clement. If he was in there, we'd have probably still won it because he would have known the changes to make at that point in time. That's where I think Stevie Smith lacks from a Rangers point of view. However, to your point, in question, yes, would he be able to transition? I think he would, 100%. I think he'd be able to help the transition. What I would love to see here, though, in terms of the management team, David, I think Rangers have a situation now where they're seen as damaged goods just now with the amount of people that's walked away, right? And you look at Gerrard's, you look at Muscat, you look at Danny Rowe, you look at Sean Dyche. All four of them have turned around and distanced themselves from the job for whatever reason, and we can argue that till the cows come home. For whatever reason in that structure, they've distanced themselves. You go back 5-10 years, no manager would have turned around and said at the point we're walking away from Rangers Football Club or Celtic Football Club at that point, and no manager would have done it because the club came with prestige. The club came with, they knew that we're going to get with it. The challenge we've got right now is the common denominators behind the scenes of what's been going on and how they want to set up that structure. And if they continue with that structure, we're going to be in a position where we're going to have the worst run possible Rangers have ever had. And that's why that structure needs to fold. And the only way that structure can fold is by getting people in who know the club, who can put their values into it, and who have got a bit of gravitas with the fans to turn around and say to those behind the scenes, by the way, see this structure you've got? It's a pile of nonsense and it's not going to work for Rangers Football Club. This is Rangers. We're different. We're not the likes of Leeds United. We're not Norwich City. We're not Wolves. We're Rangers Football Club. We're a club that's got 50,000 fans going to their games every second week. We've got a club that's got millions and millions of supporters across the world. We cannot be seen to be getting into the same fit as just what other clubs do. And that's where these American owners have got to take it seriously, because right now they're not taking it seriously enough. And they've got to understand Rangers are not like the other clubs. Rangers are on their own, a separate club, a club who is like no other, as we call it all the time, and a club that will not accept what's going on right now. And that's where I keep coming back to that. It needs a Rangers man behind the scenes to be able to put that gravitas in there with the fans and get his saying across for it, because it's only that way that we're going to be able to change things. We're not going to be able to change things with a Danny Rowe or a Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or a Slaven Bilic, to be fair to him, right? We're not going to be able to change that structure, because they're just going to go in and say yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir to Kevin Thurwell and Patrick Stewart. That's all they're going to do. So I hate quoting this one, we are probably going to need to go through a bit of pain over the next few weeks and months while that happens, until we can get someone in there who is going to be able to push those buttons behind the scenes and say this structure is not acceptable. A couple of names, Dave, if I can shout out here, a couple of names in the chat. I've mentioned some people. One of the names I really liked, and I think this is something, I'm not saying we need them on the coaching staff, but we maybe need them behind the scenes to start getting these guys under control a little bit. Graham Souness. Somebody put a name of Graham Souness on to say we maybe need Graham Souness behind the scenes in order to try and talk to the club and try and get something done behind the scenes. Not in a coaching sense, not in a manager sense, but somebody who knows the club inside out. And he knows the club inside out. Why not get him in behind the scenes to talk to these guys and say, what you are doing right now is fundamentally not working and you need to change something? Because I think the problem we've got just now is there's not enough people who know Rangers history and heritage in that board. And that's why we're getting into a situation where they're trying to take the club in a totally wrong position. We need to get Rangers men back in there to turn around and say, this is not working at the moment, and you need to change it up. But for what, just to clarify, Dave, I'm not saying like Graham Souness should be on your coaching staff or on the management team. Not a chance. I'm saying we need people behind the scenes to be pushing the buttons to try and make these changes, because right now we don't have enough people singing the Rangers fans' points to this board, and I think that's where we're getting let down badly at the moment.
So just to be totally clear, Chris, the reason I burst out laughing isn't because of the thought of him being on the coaching team. I mean, I agree, I don't think there's a place as a coach, given he's been out of the game so long, but there's absolutely a place where he could advise the board on the kind of club itself, the ethos behind it. The reason I burst out laughing is because I reckon he'd last about 10 minutes before he'd have an HR complaint and be out the door again, but there we are.
You're not wrong.
Right.
You're not wrong in that one, Dave. You're definitely not wrong in that. That would be, you're absolutely spot on with that one, definitely. But look, somebody mentioned it. I think Gordon's mentioned it there in the comments. Souness wanted Lampard at the time when we took Clement, and he wanted Lampard. He's a big advocate of Lampard. He knew what Lampard could bring. Look, I know we've not spoken about Lampard. I know he's doing a great job at Coventry at the moment, and they're flying high just now. But to Mitch's point, why are we just focused on managers who are not in a job at the moment? Why not go to somebody like Lampard and say, okay, if you've got this, if you want to come in, you like Rangers as much as you've said in the past you like Rangers, come in. Here's the situation. The challenge, the reason they won't do that is because they know if they've had turned down by Gerrard, they've been turned down by Muscat, there's a very high chance they're going to get turned down by like Lampard, especially when they're in a position at the moment. He's doing such a great job at Coventry just now. He's going to want that control, and he's not going to get the control he wants at the moment. So that for me is where the challenge is at. But we need to, this needs to change, and it needs to change quickly, because if we don't, it's not going to be the top six of the table we're going to be looking at. We're going to be languishing in the bottom six, and we're going to be a relegation battle quicker than we know it. We're nearly to November here, and we've won once this season, and we've won one game in 5 months in the league or something like that. What it is. That's a damning state Rangers are in at the moment, and that's how I think there's much bigger problems at the moment than what we actually think is going on just now.
It's wild, mate. Absolutely wild. Right, we've been on for an hour and 5 minutes, so probably going to wrap it there. Just before we do finish, I'm going to fire you completely on the spot, guys. So, interim or permanent, and one name that you would like to see in there. So I'll kick off, right? I think interim, 100%, because I think you need to get a manager in, then sort out the mess that's our sporting structure in the background, and then appoint a permanent manager. I think for me, I'd probably say Neil McCann as the interim manager, with like say Stephen Davis or Kevin Thompson working as a coach. But that would be my preference. Mitch, I'll come to you first, mate. Who are you thinking?
Permanent.
This should be good.
I'm going to say permanent. I'm going to chuck two names. Dark horse I've had
Get
from
one.
I've given you two anyway. I've got two fingers I can show you if you want as well. My dark horse who's been in the running in my head from day one, Van Bommel. The other sensible one, based on names that's been reported that have been interested and interviewed, still going to stick down 10 toes down on Bilic.
Stevie?
Absolutely not. To Mitch's suggestions, I would go interim, and I think it's kind of similar to what Chris was saying there about Souness. I'm not going to say Souness, but somebody with a real character and a set of bollocks. I would go for Neil Warnock. He's also a football mercenary. He would do the job for the rest of the season as an interim manager. But I don't know how he would butt up against Thelwell. I doubt Thelwell would fancy the challenge. They're trying to control Neil Warnock. But for somebody to come in and galvanise the squad, and he would really put them through their paces, and you know he would take it. He would love to come to Rangers. Given where we are, he's a firefighter. I think he's the guy we should get.
You need Big Sam the way things are going on. Chris, what about yourself, mate? I'll come at you in a minute, Mitch.
I think if you're going to do a manager just now, I'm going to stick with the Rangers connection. As much as people won't like it, my view would be bring Barry Ferguson in, whether it's an interim or whether it's full time. I'd bring him in. One thing I just want to say, Dave, somebody's mentioned a name in the comments that we've not really spoke about too much. Scotty spoke about it at the start, and I wouldn't rule this guy out. There's no reason for him to rule him out. But Phil has put on, let me hear Chris rule out Robinson, and he's talking about Stephen Robinson and reasons to do so. Look, I wouldn't rule out Stephen Robinson at all. I think Stephen Robinson's done a fantastic job everywhere he's went, whether it's St Mirren, Motherwell or whoever. And I think, look, it's a name that, if I'm being honest, it's not the biggest name, it's not the greatest name, it's not a name that you would probably say is always going to be Rangers Football Club. But if it had to be Stephen Robinson, would I be against that? Not at all. I think he's done a tremendous job where he's at. And look, he's very similar to some of the managers. Like, he gets people playing, he gets teams winning, he gets teams fighting, and he gets teams being hard to beat. So for me, look, Stephen Robinson could be another one in there. And I would say to Philip, thanks for watching and thanks for putting that name out there, because he's certainly a name that I don't think would be not considered from a Rangers board point of view. I think they could consider it. But I'm taking Barry Ferguson for me because of the Rangers connection side of things, and I want more Rangers men in behind the scenes. That's the reason I would say Barry Ferguson, whether it be interim or whether it be permanent at the moment.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Offered 1.3 to 1.5 million for Muscat. How many years has McInnes got in his contract? Would that cover that if we went to Hearts? If I'm willing to offer that, how much is he on? Because if we go above his contract, then they should let us speak to him.
It's an
It's right
argument that the basket case we are at the minute is just as likely turns us down as the last time, to be honest, mate. But yeah, you could absolutely test their resolve. I'm probably going to regret doing this. I usually do. But Mitch, you wanted to come in, so I'll give you the last word just before we wrap up, mate.
It's just to see everybody
I
shouting
can't hear
on.
you. Never mind, mate.
There's those two fingers I was telling you about, Dave. No, to anyone on the Barry Ferguson suggestion, Barry can't come back in because he doesn't hold a UEFA A licence for the Europa League, and we've had the dispensation last season with Barry coming in. So Barry Ferguson can't come back in on an interim basis. The only way that would really work would be you'd probably have to put Neil McCann in with Barry as number 2, but on on a kind of on paper level, you probably need to do that to make that work. And I just don't envisage a world where that happens. But you can't have dispensation twice for the same manager, especially not in consecutive seasons.
Mitch, just on that one though, is my understanding is Barry Ferguson's going through his referee licence at the moment, and that's where you would then get a dispensation again because he's already going through the process of it. But to your point, you could have someone else in the coaching staff who has got the EFL licence they need, plus at the same time you would then just have them as listed as the one taking the team on those games. You know, Barry Ferguson would be the one shouting the names behind the scenes, but you could have a McCann or whoever else has got the licence to do it. Look, that Mitch, I'll be honest, can I see Barry Ferguson taking on? I don't think he will because of what happened last season, but I would like him to take on, is what I'm saying in that one. But I can't see it happening.
I'm not slagging off your suggestion by them, just saying that genuinely from a paperwork standpoint,
yeah,
Barry couldn't do it. But there's another wee point that's just tickled at me a wee bit since the start of the pod about putting Rangers men in the coaching staff. When you look at, when the Thompsons, the Davieses, and again, nothing wrong with these guys as coaches, but in their coaching career to date, what have they done to merit being in the boat, or be having a place in the coaching based on their coaching career?
Well, Thompson's more qualified than Ferguson. Thompson won a league. So, sorry.
KT, I'd have it all day long.
I think, to be honest, right, Scotty's lurking in the comments. I think that's a pod in of its own right, to be quite honest with you guys. So let's call it quits tonight. Second time on. Thanks everyone that has tuned in. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe to the video. And for now, every night is a Rangers Journal night.